Welcome to Choices Unlimited. My name is Kevin Ranfeld, and I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking to you a little bit about Choices Unlimited and about knowledge is power. But first of all, why do we even have Choices Unlimited? What's the whole reason? Choices Unlimited is all about getting you the tools you need to make wise choices, to educate students to the dangers of drugs and violence by teaching the truth about both of these things and by giving you the tools you need to avoid both. We kind of like to say it like this: I need to make the wise choice. You know, we need to make wise choices pertaining to drugs and alcohol and violence, but we also probably understand that we need to make wise choices in all areas of our lives. And that's what's kind of the cool thing. Some of the tools that we're going to teach you are tools that you can use, yes, in making wise choices with drugs, alcohol, and violence, but also in all areas of our lives. Our goal is each of you will know the damages and the consequences of involvement with drugs and violence. You'll be able to use the information you've been given to avoid the pitfalls and temptations associated with drugs and violence. So, let's get started. First of all, I kind of talked to you a little bit already about knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Example, a computer. Many of you have probably already used a computer pretty frequently or extensively. There's a lot of power in a computer. A computer can do a lot of things for us. But if you don't know how to use it, all of that power is useless. Say you don't even know how to turn it on. All the things that computer can do for you is useless if you don't know how to use it. Knowledge to use that computer unlocks the power it can do for you. So today, we want to give you knowledge as it pertains to drugs and alcohol. Knowledge that you can use to make wise choices concerning drugs and alcohol. So, let's get started, shall we? First of all, what is a drug? Let's define what a drug is. A drug, by the Food and Drug Administration, is defined as any substance other than food that affects the way your mind and body works. Yeah, any substance other than food that affects the way your mind and body works. So, given that definition, can drugs be good? Yeah, they can. For instance, ever had a headache? Maybe your mom or your dad or maybe even a teacher or the school nurse gave you some ibuprofen to take. And let's say it made your headache go away. Did that affect your mind and body, how it was working? Of course it did. Is ibuprofen a food? No, it isn't. So it is a drug, by definition. And it can be good for you. Drugs can be both good or bad. Now, some drugs that are good can also be misused or used the wrong way. It can be the misuse of drugs or drug abuse. Drug abuse is the next definition we'd like to look at. Drug abuse is the wrong use or the misuse of drugs. Using illegal drugs is drug abuse, or using drugs in a way that we're not designed or prescribed to do. For example, our case of ibuprofen. Taking one ibuprofen, maybe two, depending on your age, can be a good thing. But taking the whole bottle, do you think that's a good thing? Absolutely not. That's the wrong use or the misuse of drugs. That's drug abuse and can be very serious. Even can kill someone. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about helpful versus harmful drugs. Helpful drugs are drugs that can help us, like our case of ibuprofen. Harmful drugs are drugs that are very harmful for us. So let's talk a little bit about helpful drugs. Okay, some helpful drugs are prescription drugs. Prescription drugs are an example of a helpful drug. What are prescription drugs? Prescription drugs are drugs that your doctor or that a doctor prescribes to you. Things such as antibiotics or painkillers or even maybe cough medicines. These are all the drugs that are prescribed by a doctor. Typically, after that doctor has checked you over and made sure that your body is in a healthy state and is able to use that drug. and to be able to make sure that that drug is going to be helpful to you. Over-the-counter drugs is another type of helpful drug. Over-the-counter drugs are those that we can buy without a prescription or without going to a doctor. Again, ibuprofen, aspirin, cough syrup, decongestants, things that we can go to a local store and buy without consulting a doctor. Prescription drugs or even over-the-counter drugs can be abused. Taking too much of these types of drugs can cause serious problems. Or taking a prescription medication that is not prescribed for you, but prescribed for someone else, can also be a very serious problem. So, can good, helpful drugs be harmful? Absolutely, if they are misused or if they are abused. Now let's talk about harmful drugs. Harmful drugs are drugs that are not good for you. They aren't drugs that don't have a positive use, such as ibuprofen can have positive results. One type of harmful drug is considered social drugs. Social drugs are drugs that aren't illegal but are bad, can be bad for us. Now, some drugs are legal and some are illegal, but even though some drugs are legal, they can still be abused. Social drugs, such as tobacco and alcohol, are considered social drugs, are legal if you are 18 years old for tobacco or 21 years old for alcohol. But just because they are illegal doesn't make them helpful. Now, another type of drug that is harmful is illegal drugs. These are drugs such as marijuana, methamphetamines, inhalants, are all drugs that are not good for us. Doctors don't prescribe or give us these drugs. They are even illegal to possess, use, or manufacture. These drugs come from drug dealers. Drug dealers are people who sell and push drugs for money. So these are just some of the harmful drugs. One other harmful drug that I want to mention is synthetic drugs. Synthetic drugs are drugs that mimic other harmful drugs, and we're going to talk a little bit more about those in just a little bit. So what are harmful drugs? Social drugs can be harmful if they are abused. Illegal drugs are harmful, and synthetic drugs are harmful. So why are they bad for us? Why are they illegal to begin with? Drugs affect the way our brain works and its capabilities. Now, our ability to work, play, and live a normal life is hard enough without adding drugs. Drugs affect our brains. How many of you know that our brains control everything we do? Has anyone ever had a bad day when everything seems to go wrong? What'd you do? Get mad? Get sad? Can you imagine how using drugs could only make it worse? You see, drugs, illegal drugs, affect our bodies in all different ways. Not one person is affected the same way. There are factors involved that determine how drugs affect each person. Our age, our weight, our general health, and even our family history. Do their parents use drugs? Drugs affect our heart, our nerves, our liver, our kidneys. Drugs will affect our ability to digest food and our ability to properly breathe. It will affect our ability to remove waste from our blood. It even affects our thought processes. It affects our social behavior and our ability to get along with others, including our friends and families. Since drugs affect the way our brain works, we have trouble doing just about everything we try to do when we are influenced by these illegal or harmful drugs. Some young people will try drugs thinking it might make them cool or to be accepted or to make them look older. They may try drugs because a friend is pressuring them. Or maybe they have a lot of problems at home or school. Some may be trying to appear popular or fit in with other drug users. Remember, the main reason we don't use illegal drugs is we don't want to put anything in our bodies that will be harmful to us. And it's illegal. So let's talk a little bit about some harmful drugs. Alcohol. Alcohol can be harmful if it is abused. Now again, alcohol is something that can be consumed at what age legally? 21 or older, that's right. 21 or older, you can legally use alcohol. Now, an alcohol is a depressant that slows the body processes down. It slows our reaction time down. So, what might that mean? It means that it takes longer for our thoughts to process and our body to react. Now, this may not seem like a big deal, but let's say you're in a car and you see a stop sign coming down the road. And if you're slower to react to that, you could go through that stop sign, potentially hurting yourself and or hurting other people. So a depressant or alcohol is a depressant that slows down our bodily functions when we have consumed too much alcohol. Okay? Nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical found in cigarettes, chewing, or pipe tobacco. Nicotine is why people find it very difficult to quit smoking or using tobacco products. Addiction is a very strong urge that your body is saying, I need this. For an example, chocolate. I know this might relate to a lot of people. Some people may say, or have you ever said, I need chocolate? Okay. Nicotine or addiction is kind of like that, but it's much, much more severe. Now, we may have a strong urge to consume chocolate, but our body, when you're addicted to something and have a chemical addiction, your body is uncontrollably crying out and reacting when it does not have that substance. And nicotine is that substance, that addictive chemical that makes that strong urge to use that particular substance. So nicotine is the addictive chemical that makes it hard to quit using tobacco, such as smoking. All right, marijuana. Let's take a look at marijuana. Marijuana is a green leafy plant that is a member of the hemp family and is considered a mind-altering drug. Marijuana has gotten a lot of attention lately. Some states have even legalized the use of marijuana. But again, just because something is legal doesn't always mean it's helpful. If it alters the way we think, do you think it could affect our lives? Do you think it could affect your schoolwork? And if it affects our schoolwork, could it affect our grades? So you can see that some of these things can be very, very harmful to us. Marijuana is one of those things that can be very harmful for us. Inhalants. Inhalants are common products such as glue, gasoline, paint, or other household products that are inhaled or breathed in mass quantities. Now, it's important to understand that this is an intentional act. Using an inhalant as a drug is not something that can be done accidentally. Just because you're exposed to maybe paint fumes, maybe your dad's out in the garage painting something with spray paint. Just because you're exposed to that, and that is something that can be used as an inhalant, does not mean that you are using an inhalant. This is an intentional act that someone does intentionally to inhale in mass quantities the fumes from these types of products. Inhalants are something that is very, very dangerous, probably because this is a type of substance that can be easily obtained in almost any household and used. You don't have to go to a drug dealer to get this type of products, to abuse these and use this as a drug. Other reasons why this is so dangerous is because there have been teenagers that have died from the very first use of an inhalant. So it is a very dangerous and serious problem. Prescription drugs. Taking a prescription medication that is not prescribed for you or for reasons or in dosages other than as prescribed. Abuse of prescription drugs can produce serious health effects, including addiction. Yeah, just because a doctor prescribes a medication, if it is not taken correctly, it can be serious and very harmful. Again, prescription drug abuse is very common today and is a very big problem among teenagers and even adults as well. This is something that needs to be taken very seriously. And so taking that prescription medication that has not been prescribed for you or taking it in larger doses can be very serious and even lead to death. Methamphetamines. Methamphetamines is a very addictive stimulant and a very dangerous drug. Methamphetamines, or commonly known as meth, is very common in this area. It's often referred to as poor man's cocaine because it's a lot like cocaine other than the fact that it is a lot cheaper. Now, this is a very dangerous drug, and many people have suffered from using a drug like methamphetamines. People have died from extended use or even using meth the very first time. And it is considered a very dangerous and illegal drug. Synthetic drugs. Synthetic drugs are drugs that mimic other commonly known illegal drugs and have powerful effects on users. Synthetic drugs are something that's being widely talked about in this day and age. K2, bath salts are a couple of different kind of common known synthetic drugs. Synthetic drugs, the biggest issue or problem with synthetic drugs is they are constantly being created. And just as many of you probably already know, it takes time to pass laws and make these substances illegal to use. And until that time, drug dealers or people that are selling these things can sell them completely legal with no laws against them. So it's very difficult for law enforcement to keep these out of people's hands and potentially from hurting themselves or others when they are not illegal. So that's a big dangerous thing about synthetic drugs. These are drugs that mimic other commonly known illegal drugs and have powerful effects on users. And the other thing that is very difficult is we know the kind of effects that marijuana and meth have on people because they've been around a long time. Synthetic drugs, we don't know the long-term effects of people that use these drugs because they just have not been around a long time. So it's a big question mark as to what kind of effects or what kind of outcome can come to people who use these substances. So finally, as we wrap up today, knowledge is power. Power to do what? Power to make wise choices. As we looked into some of the common drugs today, commonly known drugs that are in this area today, I hope that we have been able to empower you with knowledge. To do what? To make wise choices pertaining to drugs, alcohol. So, I leave you today. Why do we have choices? To get you the tools that you need to make wise choices. And knowledge is